Hi, I'm Dr. Marilyn. Welcome to Let's Talk Emotionology. On today's episode, we are going to talk about confidence. Are you confident? Are you confident sometimes, but not other times? Let's talk about it. On this channel, we explore emotion science and how it shapes achievement, leadership, learning, and everyday human experience. Not as abstract theory, but as lived human experience. Our conversations are grounded in my latest book, Emotionology, from Aristotle to AI. In this book, I discuss emotion science research and how it can be translated into practical understanding. As I said earlier, today we are going to talk about a word that people constantly throw around, yet we're constantly exploring this concept: confidence. We're also going to talk about a very common assumption behind it. Right. Like assuming? Right. That confidence is something you either have or you don't have. That's the assumption. Well, either you got it or you don't. Some people might think I'm super confident, especially I'm doing a YouTube channel, I'm writing a book, I'm putting all these things out on social media, although I hang out mostly on LinkedIn. And why do I do that? Because my confidence is more for an intellectual platform than it is for a social platform. I can be entertaining, but I'm not confident that I can do that on social media. Now, I can entertain you while we're talking, but that confidence comes from the underlying premise that I'm comfortable with my work. I can change a tire, I can do my nails, I can do my hair. I'm confident about doing my nails because I've been doing them for years. But I'm not confident about doing somebody else's nails. So you see how confidence works? So it's not just as simple as saying either you have confidence or you don't have confidence. It all depends on the circumstance. Above all, it depends on the interpretation. Emotion science suggests something completely different than either you have it or you don't. So, think about how often people say things like, she's just naturally confident. I know they say that about me, and it's not true. Or, he's never been a confident person. And that's because you didn't see him in the arena where he's most confident. Maybe he's most confident when he's doing something that he likes, not so much at work. He can do his job well, but because he doesn't show you what you think is confident, you say he's never been confident. So it's all about interpretation. Confidence is often treated as though it were personality. And I talked about this in episode 4 with motivation. Motivation is also talked about as though it's your personality. This is why I wrote that blog that talks about the fact that a personality test is not enough. The personality test is like the outside of the fruit. What about what's inside? Well, what's inside is the emotion science data, the fuel and protective emotions that drive us. So, confidence, as I said, is often treated as though it's a personality trait, as though some people were simply born with it and others weren't. However, when you observe people carefully in real situations, and this is what I said a few minutes ago, something interesting happens. The same person who appears confident in one setting may feel completely uncertain in another. I just told you that. I can get up and speak before millions of people. But if one or two of them ask me to have coffee afterwards, I will make every excuse in the book because I am a loner. I'm confident about being in social settings alone. I have taken 8-day cruises, flown to Europe alone, and have done it multiple times. alone, because that's when I'm confident. Now I'll interact with you and hang out with you, but that's the extent of my confidence with being in the presence of others. I don't have any inferiority complexes. Confidence just works different on an individual level if we take the time to notice it. Because some people who know me, and if they're watching this, they'll be like, oh my God, I never knew that. Confidence is an intimate thing. The same person, as I said, who appears confident in one setting might appear completely uncertain in another setting. This is why we can't say that confidence is purely personality. Because if it were, it should appear the same everywhere, and it doesn't. Emotion science helps to explain why. If you are a regular reader, you know that at this point, we read a little something from the book. And today, like they say in church, today we are reading from section 8.3. And the title of that section is Regulation versus Suppression. In other words, what can we control and allow to be seen because we can handle it, we can regulate it, and what do we hide or suppress? Because there is a structural distinction. And I read, Emotionology draws a clear distinction between suppression and regulation. This distinction is grounded in emotion science data, and that's what I started to mention earlier at the beginning of this episode. The distinction is not moral, nor is it motivational. It is structural. It's what's under the skin of the fruit. The personality is the skin of the fruit. What's inside? What's inside of the fruit? That's the emotion science data. And I continue with the reading. Suppression operates by attempting to remove or override internal information. In other words, if we feel lack of confidence in a situation, we'll try to suppress our inner selves. We either do that because we want to try to fit in or because we want to get away as quickly as possible. To continue with the reading, it prioritizes appearance over alignment. That's what I just said. And often produces short-term compliance. We appear like we're with it. But this is at the cost of long-term coherence. In the 70s, we used to say, fake it till you make it. That's what we do when we suppress what we're feeling. Last part. Regulation, by contrast, operates through coordination. The prefix co means with. Ordinate means you're going in the same direction. That's why you have coordinates on a map or in the GPS. So coordination, when you regulate, you want to go along, but not just to get along. You're going to bring your true self and get the other person to understand. Last part of the reading directly from the book. Regulation does not eliminate signals. It interprets them within the context. Regulation aligns cognitive interpretation, what we think, motivational direction, what's driving us, physiological readiness, what we're feeling in our body. Are we feeling queasy because we're nervous? Are we blushing because we're shy? So regulation aligns all of these with our affect, A-F-F-E-C-T. That means what we are feeling. In this way, the effort can move in a single direction rather than competing internally. And that's the end of the reading. When we're competing internally, we don't know whether to go on thought or motivation or physiological feelings or our neurological affect, what's coming from our feeling centers of the brain, also known as our limbic system. So what do we do with this? Well, this is the portion of the show where we talk about the lived expansion. We talk about taking it from the book into the real world arena, expanding it out. Let's translate it then into everyday life. I'll give you a scenario. Again, another real world scenario that I have had as an emotion science strategist working with clients. Imagine two people preparing to speak in front of a group. One person appears calm, the other appears visibly nervous, like you can see them shaking. Most observers would say, oh well, one person is confident, the other one is not. Then when they start speaking, the one who appeared confident, they're stumbling all over the place. The one who appeared nervous, smooth delivery. And that's how emotion science shows that confidence often reflects how people manage pressure in the moment. The person who appeared physiologically nervous, cognitively, as far as their thinking, they had it together. Affectively, as far as their feeling, they had it together. Motivationally, as far as their drive, they had it together. And this is why, as a part of the Emotionology Life profile, not only do you get your fuel and protective emotions, you also get your dominant neurological domain. Are you cognitive, affective, motivational, or physiological as your dominant presence? You also get your dominant time frame before, during, or after an event. Are you naturally ready before an event? Do you need a little motivation during the event? Or do you have to wait till the end before you even feel any kind of confidence about the situation? So emotionology helps you manage pressure in the moment. Some people have learned how to steady themselves under pressure. Others have learned to avoid or withdraw when pressure comes. This is why couples, I've worked with couples, and one would say, oh, they just walk away when I want to talk. Because that's how they have learned to manage pressure. It's not that they're not confident, but there are other variables at work. That's why we need the full Emotionology Life profile. Confidence, when we walk away, is not simply personality. Confidence, when we are steady under pressure, is not simply personality. Like I said earlier, it's the emotion science data. The dominant fuel emotions, the dominant protective emotions, the dominant neurological domains, the dominant achievement time frame. It often reflects how someone handles a challenge while they are inside of it. What's happening when we are dealing with it? That's why they tell you count to 10 as well. Because in counting to 10, it gives you time to stabilize or walk away and calm down. So if you're dealing with somebody under pressure and they want to walk away, please let them. Because if you don't, it just escalates, and sadly, sometimes it escalates physically. The conditions around the individual in that moment matters. Their past experience matters. The patterns of fuel and protective emotions present in that moment matter. When the conditions support stability, people often appear confident. The opposite is also true. When the conditions trigger protective responses, anger, anxiety, hopelessness, boredom, shame, that same person can appear uncertain. And when they recognize that they're uncertain, they shut down. They want to walk away. That's why I say, let them. So, we're at the portion of our show where we talk about the integration moment. How are we putting all of this together? Well, first of all, let's remember our theme for the day. Confidence is misunderstood often. It is treated as a personality trait when it may actually be a pattern that's developing over time based on the emotion science data within the individual. So, when people understand the conditions that support stability under pressure, then confidence becomes something that can grow. And it's not like you lack the confidence. You just need the data, the emotion science data, to help you to interpret the confidence. Because confidence changes levels based on our circumstances. We all know that. We all know that. Some of us are confident in the kitchen. Some of us are confident in our office. Some of us are confident when we're out for a run. As a long distance runner for over 3 decades, I know that a run will stabilize me any day. So we have to interpret what's happening inside so that we can shift confidence as needed, depending on how the circumstances change. So, this is not something that can be demanded. You cannot demand that a person be confident. You cannot demand that a person do right by you and act better, because that's coming from within. You're responding to a personality trait that drew you to that person, but there's more under the surface. This is not something that only a few people possess. Everybody possesses the ability to understand their confidence and to interpret not only their own confidence and adjust accordingly, but also the confidence of those around them and adjust accordingly. So the next time you're looking at someone and you think, well, when you're at work, you can do all this, but when you're home, you can't do anything. Confidence shifts with circumstance. Remember that, my friend. And also, they can do all that at work because they don't have the same connection with their emotions with the people at work as they do with the people at home. So, thank you once again for tuning in to Let's Talk Emotionology. Remember, subscribe, like, share, follow, talk about us so that others can experience what you're experiencing. We are doing edutainment. We are educating and entertaining as we get the world to understand the concept of emotion, science, and its data. So what's next? Well, if this conversation resonated with you and you want to better understand your patterns of fuel and protective emotions and how they shape your performance, the performance of those around you, then Emotionology Life is here to help. Go to our website, emotionologylife.com, and explore all of the ways that we can help you to decipher patterns for you and those closest to you. As I alluded to earlier, through the Emotionology Life profile, you as an individual, as a couple, as a family, or organizations can better understand your achievement in different environments, why your confidence is one way in one environment and another way in the other. Thank you once again for joining me. Until next time, be good to yourself.